Welcome to April and Debbie Dish the Truth on Weight Loss, where we share the raw, real, and sometimes messy truth about our weight loss journeys.
I am Debbie, a weight loss coach who has lost 100 pounds and have been living in maintenance for 4 years.
And I'm April, a weight loss coach, currently down 75 pounds and continuing my journey to lose 100 more.
Together, we'll explore the ups, downs, and everything in between, showing you that lasting weight loss is possible no matter where you are on your path.
Absolutely. And this week, we don't have a specific question, but we have experiences that Debbie brought up to talk about. So I'm going to let Debbie introduce this week's topic.
So, thank you. And April and I both had, it was weird that we both had the same sort of experience. So, I was on a local Facebook page and was reading something from a person who posted that she had gone into Walmart and on her way in had been fat shamed. And to read what she wrote was so heartbreaking, but in the sadness and the like just the gross feeling I know that it must have brought about because I have experienced it, to see her like express all of her sadness, but then watch me. I am moving forward and I am doing this. And it's not always, I am sure from the time she went into Walmart, did her shopping, came out, the the rage, the sadness, whatever feelings that she was having, she had them, but also got to watch me now. And
Mhm.
I think that it's if you have not lived in a large body, if you have not been, and I'm going to say, if you've not been fat, you do not know what we live through. I think people perceive fat people as lazy, eat constantly stuffing their face, and don't care. And it just couldn't be further from the truth. And so that's what I'd like to discuss this week and talk about, because I know you have experiences as well as like what people say about us doesn't truly identify us, but it still hurts and it still sucks. And how do you get through both?
Yes. And when you brought this topic up to me, I got very, very passionate about the subject because I've witnessed it, I've experienced it, and I think it's important to like we're going to talk about this, but clearly most likely the people listening to us would not be the people saying these things to other people, but
Mhm.
they're getting it said to them. And what we want to talk about is how we respond and how we take care of ourselves in those moments. It's really not about the other person because what I have kind of led myself to get through these situations is really like that person must have something missing from their lives that they get a benefit from treating somebody else like crap. So, but it also goes not even into strangers. It can be people that we know
Yeah.
personally saying things that are hurtful, whether it's weight related or anything. Like there's just comments. Humans in general don't always think before they speak and don't
Mhm.
really think about how it might affect the other person because they're thinking that wouldn't hurt my feelings. So why would it hurt somebody else's feelings? But everybody's so different and we have to take a step back and think how that might affect somebody else. So I love that we will talk about this because this is something I've worked on since finding out about life coaching and getting life coach certified because I was a person who really internalized what people said to me
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
really it was a struggle. I would lose sleep. I would just like constantly think about it. I would feel bad. I would let it be my truth. And it's something I still work on it, but I've definitely made a lot of improvements with how I handle it now.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was trying to My mom was obese and she was shorter than I was, and I think I've mentioned this. She had the best squishy belly and I loved just but I remember kids in high school. I remember specifically we had, that she must have to deflate one side of her tires so the car traveled the right way because she weighed it down so much on the driver's side.
Oh
And
my
I,
God.
and I remember being at a restaurant. It was in Saugus, Mass. And I had come home from college for somebody in our family, and I'm sorry, I don't remember who, but it was 100 years ago, had passed away, and we went to this place that had a great buffet. And large people can go to a buffet just as well as a small person. Like, it is not a requirement that you are a certain BMI to go to a buffet. Anybody can go. But I know from going to buffets as a larger person, people look at you, and there are a lot of things that are perhaps thought. I don't know their thoughts, right? But this
Mhm.
restaurant that we were at, there was a couple behind us, probably in their 30s, making fun of my mother. And we could clearly hear them. They were in the booth behind me. And I got up and I just said, "Do you feel better about yourself?" Like, I just don't understand. And you are so right. It is about them, not about the person that they're making fun of. And no matter how much I try to understand it, I never will, because I'm not in their head. So it's, again, what do we do with that?
Yeah. And I think that's the thing it's so socially acceptable to talk about people's weight, whether it's good or bad. Have
Yeah.
you lost weight? Have you gained weight? Or judgments or whatever. It's it's socially acceptable. That's kind of what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And if it was different, like we all have coping mechanisms, right? Whether it's gambling, shopping, drinking, smoking, go down the list of whatever it is, food. But overweight people, the judgment is there, and it's almost like a rite of passage for people to talk about people's weight. And
Hmm.
but if somebody was a smoker and they stop smoking, people are like, yeah, that's so awesome. And then if that same person starts to smoke again, the first thing that most people say is, I know it's so hard to stop smoking.
Hmm.
But when it's a weight issue, it's like, well, you just need to eat less and move more. There's no empathy there. And I'm not saying everybody's weight issue, but oftentimes, especially if you are in the obese category, which is not my favorite word, but that's what they use medically. So if you
Yeah.
are in that category, most likely there's also a mental health issue going on. And I speak for myself as well, whether it's anxiety, whether it's depression, whatever it might be, there's something else going on. And people are utilizing food to cope, where other people use smoking to cope. But that's even a little bit more socially accepted if you have that, because your consequence of smoking is not worn on the outside of your body. We wear on the outside of our body are consequence of our coping mechanism. But other people's are not. You're not seeing the internal organs on the outside of their body or how they're looking. You're not seeing the bills that people owe because of their gambling or the relationships that are broken because of their spending or whatever the situation is. But because ours is publicly seen, people feel like they're entitled to comment and have opinions. And that really upsets me
Yeah.
because it's just such a it's really it can be very cruel and it's also unnecessary. Like there's just no reason. If you don't like the way the person looks, or if you think they look disgusting or whatever thought you might have, there is the opposite way to look and just keep moving on with your day. There's absolutely no reason or benefit
Yeah.
that comes from being a jerk
Hmm.
and saying something out loud. It's just, I mean, we all have thoughts. I'm not innocent of having judgments of people, and I'm never going to say that I am, but I have the fortitude and the thought process to know like those aren't things that I should be saying. And I have the thoughts about myself, you know what I mean? But I don't say them out loud to myself and I don't say them to other people. You as a human, you want to take a moment to think about like, am I saying something productive? And if not, I should probably just not say it.
Yeah. Wait, because what purpose is it? I mean, do you feel better? Whoever makes these comments, do you feel better about yourself after you say it? And I think that that's what happens a lot of times is people may say it and not even think about it later,
Hmm.
but for us, we do.
Hmm.
Like, I remember on my weight loss journey, because I am a sharer a lot, because I want people to know what is possible and that it isn't perfect. But I remember sharing how much weight I had lost one time. And somebody literally wrote on my Facebook post, yeah, great, you've lost it before. Let's see if you keep it off. And
Oh, good.
and I just thought, I don't really understand why you would say something like that. And I know where this person works, and I've thought about going in while they're working just to be like, but that doesn't serve any purpose. Like it doesn't, I didn't lose my weight for that person. I don't maintain it for that person. But all these years later, that still sticks with me, and
Yeah, I think technology is so great in so many ways, but especially with the forums and comments, and people just get so brave and what they say to people that hopefully they wouldn't say in person overall. But I think that's commonality that everybody can share. Even if
Mhm.
they're you don't have a weight issue, people will comment on your looks. They will comment on your speech. They'll like, you know, just in general, people make comments about other people or
Yeah.
even so sorry, we have a kitty.
Mm, this is a pretty
I think
kitty.
the important thing is to know and to realize and learn is that it's going to happen. Even to
Yeah.
the most famous people, we see it all the time. Judgments on what they wear or if their weight has gone up 5 or 10 pounds or whatever. But those people have to keep going and know that it doesn't matter. Like I have learned and tell myself, like, if this person is not somebody who's in my life day to day, their opinion really does not matter.
Yeah.
And even the people who are in my life day to day, I have to learn, and I have been learning that my opinion is just as important, if not more important than theirs. I have to feel these things. I have to think these things about myself, and I have to believe them. And truly, at the end of the day, who am I left with but me? So
Mhm.
that's something I'm still working on, but the power of that is is incredible. And that's what can change your life. Just like even doing this podcast with you. I was freaking out. I was like, what are they going to think? What if I say something stupid? What if nobody wants like all these things? And this morning getting on camera, oh my gosh, I have to fix my hair. Just thinking about all the possibilities of what somebody might think about. And then it comes down to in me, what's important to me? And what's important to me is doing this with you and the people that we've reached and who text us and tell us how much it's helped them. It doesn't matter. If there's somebody who doesn't like it, then that's cool. It's not for them. They can change the channel and that's fine. Like
Yeah.
that's how we have to want to go through our day because the power is really you knowing you and living your life how what feels good to you. That's what I always say at the end, right? Just be willing to listen to yourself and know what feels good to you and don't let I know we see on posts all the time people don't want to take pictures with their families or go on trips or they miss out on life because of worrying about what other people might think about their body. And to be honest, say you go to the beach and you leave the beach, that person is not thinking about you later on in their day, but you still are. Your day is being affected by somebody who's not even giving you a second thought.
Yeah.
And it's just such a you're human. So of course you're going to feel something. You don't want that to happen, but at the end of the day, remember who you are as a person and the people who are in your life who do love you no matter what. And that matters more.
And it matters so much. And getting to that point, like it's okay to I have a shirt. Coach Betsy, who used to coach me, has the same shirt. I think hers might be short sleeve, doesn't matter, but it's embrace the sock. Like sometimes we're gonna hear stuff from other people. Not that we have to embrace that, but embrace like you got to deal with that shitty comment going through your mind and what it is doing to you and know that it's gonna hurt probably, but getting to the other side, like what you're saying, April, is at the end of the day, it's what we matter. So it's okay to feel yucky. Pushing the yucky away after you get disparaging comments for me makes it louder for me. Um, you know what I mean? Like
I do, and I think that's a great point because and we talk about other people, but we do it to ourselves. Like the people
yes.
who I see who talk about not wanting to take pictures with their family or friends. They're the reason. They're the thoughts. They're hearing themselves. I don't like the way I look in the pictures, or I'm too big, or the shirt doesn't fit right, or whatever that internal voice is saying to you. Because I guarantee you that family is not saying, please don't get in our picture. And if they are, well, that's a whole nother episode.
Right.
But
We'll talk about that next week.
most of the families want you in that picture. And it's our thoughts about how we look. But this also goes back to what I often will say is you always have a choice, right?
Mhm.
So in that moment, you do have a choice to not get in the picture or hide behind everybody in the back or whatever you do and and do that. So let's say you take the picture, right?
Yeah.
And you look at the picture and you don't like the way you look. But I'm telling you, in 10 years from now, and you look back and your niece or your nephew, or because I don't have kids, but I have nieces and nephew, I know my niece and nephew love seeing those memories. That's what matters to them. It does not matter to them my size. It matters that I was there and we have a physical thing to see the memory of. And I think that's the choice that you make. Do I want to have the memory for my loved ones, or do I want to miss out on that? And
Yeah.
you can choose either one is okay, but feel good with what you're choosing. I'm pretty sure most people regret not taking the pictures because later on you want them. You want to remember them.
Yeah, and no matter where you are in your journey, whether, I mean, no matter what, do you want your niece and nephew to see pictures later on that say, "Where's Auntie April?" or Aunt April?
Right.
Whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
by us being missing, we're missing from our families. And I had a challenge I did when I was first losing my weight. It was a selfie challenge, and take a picture, a selfie every single day. Write one thing you like about it, and that's it. I mean, you can see all the things you don't like, and I think I've probably brought this up before, but I think that that is so important. You don't have to like everything about a picture, but just
Mhm.
being in the picture with your brother and your nieces and nephew and Kevin and your sister-in-law, you know what I mean? Like that's what's worth embracing. Not, I mean, you can see all the things you don't like, but look at what
Mhm.
is amazing there.
It is. And I remember when I went to visit my family, my brother lives in Norway and my niece and nephew are there, and they wanted are we're gonna want to go swimming. So I had to pack a suit. And I was 320, I think, at this time. I weighed 320. So that was a lot for me to overcome mentally about a bathing suit and being in front of them and all the things. But I packed the suit and I put the suit on and I went swimming with my niece and nephew because that brought them such joy. They were not looking at me, they were jumping off the thing and we were swimming in the lake or whatever it was. And it's the memory of that. And I just encourage people to try not to miss out on those things because of your size. Know that you're still here today and live for that moment. You can continue on your journey and work on, you can even use that as fuel to want you to lose more weight if it matters to you, to get to a healthier place, to feel more comfortable. That's fine too. But for today, choose living and experiencing experiences over what anybody else might think, even yourself. Just do it
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. And when we were talking about what other people think, and I was thinking, like, I love scratch tickets. And if
Mhm.
people saw all the scratch tickets hanging off me that I've scratched, there would be a lot of judgment. And so just, you know, remember before we say anything to anybody, especially like you said, April, to ourselves, that not everything people say to us, not everything we think about ourselves is true. It's not a
Mhm.
fact. It is just not a fact. And we get to choose what is our truth and what is, I mean, and the pictures, they will be a reminder to you whether it takes you 100 years to lose your weight or whatever you're going at. that picture reminds you of who you were in that one moment. And I was not a picture avoider when I was at my largest because I was always like, here I am. And but I have like there's one picture that reminds me of when I fell in a river and I heard someone yell, "She's going down." And not in like, "Oh my God, we need to help her." Like, "Oh my God, watch out because there's going to be a splash." And 6 years later, I still remember that. I remember being at my heaviest. I had on the cutest little outfit, I thought, and the cutest little shoes. And I walked into the entryway of the office building I worked in and fell flat on my face. My briefcase, everything went down. There was an attorney behind me who didn't even ask a thing and just kept walking. And those are the thing. And if I felt today, I think it would be different. I do. And whether it's true or not, I just think it would be different. And I think that that is why those pictures are good too, to remind us of how far we've come, not just in our size, but in our, because we can remember the times, right? And how we would think differently then or how we would think differently now. But just remember, everything everybody says to us is not true. And April, you are so right. It's what we say to ourselves at the end of the day in that quiet. I'm listening to Untamed by Glennon Doyle. If you haven't listened to it or read it, it is so good. It is such a powerful book, but in the silence that she goes into is when she hears herself the best. And that's when she gets her truth. And I think she's able to block out everything that's coming from the outside world. And I think sometimes we need to do that to remind ourselves that the eh,
Mhm.
connections with our Kevins, very important. Connections with our cats and dogs and family are so important. But at the end of the day, it's our journey and our relationship with ourselves.
Absolutely. And I think it can be about anything throughout your day, right? Even at work, doesn't even have to necessarily be about our body, other people's comments about our job or what we think we're capable of doing, promotions or moving on to new jobs, or family members or friends who knew us back then, who now see us now, but still might see the old version of us.
Yeah,
Anything, any comment that's made to you that you get upset over inside or feel worked up or judged or mad about, really take a step back and ask yourself, what do I think about this? So for example, at work, we'll just use that because it's
yeah,
like everybody has this situation, I'm sure, at some point where you're in a meeting and you think, oh, I can't say anything. It's going to be dumb, or they're not going to think I have anything right to say, or whatever. I'm pretty sure you're in the meeting because they want you there, right? So say what you're thinking. And if you, even I will say sometimes, I think I've even said in the podcast, like, I hope I explained that right. Like, if you're saying something and you're not sure, say, did I explain that okay? Or do you understand what I mean? But speak up for what you want to say. And know that what other people are saying about you is a moment to question, why are you getting upset over it? Right. So for me, I would get upset over sometimes comments would be made about how I am as a person. And I don't see myself as how that person was saying something. And why was I getting upset? Well, fundamentally, I got upset because I was believing their opinion over my opinion. And I
yeah.
really had to learn to take a moment and say, okay, that can be their opinion, but I want to believe mine. And that's who I live with. And that's who I go to bed with is myself. And I'm going to believe that one instead. So it's not to say you don't care about what other people, especially the people you love, right? Of
Right,
course, you
right.
want them to have good opinions of you and have thoughts about you, but just like they might think something about me, I might think something about them sometimes. Like that's just human nature, but what we take and we internalize it so much, that's the moment where you want to say, okay, but what do I think? What do I believe? And if you do agree with them and it doesn't feel good, then that might be a signal that that's something you want to work on. That is how I came to be like, oh, like years ago, I was like, I don't want to be that person. So I worked on it. Like that's okay too, but use it
Yeah.
as an opportunity, not a sentence of how you are forever. Do you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
I do. And is it true? Like that's another good one. And how do I want to feel? And like what you are saying is so true. We get to choose. Can keep thinking the way we think they think we should think about ourselves or how we want to. And that's just the most important. And I mean, people are gonna say mean things. It is there are people who say unkind things in the world, and that is a fact. It's how we want to show up with those that matter.
Yes. And I think this has so many layers to me, I think, 'cause it's like, what are people saying? But also I keep going back and forth in my head, like how people talk to me or what I say, but then also like the things that I don't let myself do. And I think it plays such a large part. And I just like to encourage people to, no matter your size, do what is important to you. In the sense of, like, for an example, traveling. I like to travel, but I've been over 300 pounds since I was in my 20s. There's a lot of talk, and if you go online, experiences about overweight people traveling, and it can be very intimidating, and it definitely would raise my anxiety. But I thought about it, like, I really want to travel. I wanted to get to see my family in Norway. I traveled by myself, first time internationally. It was quite the experience, and I was
That's
super
a
proud of
big
myself.
deal.
It was a big deal,
Yeah.
and I didn't know what kind of planes it would be or seats or sizes or all these things were going through my head. And, I thought about it and I said, "Well, I'm gonna do it anyway." So I went in with a positive feeling about it and said, "This is gonna be okay." Even though my anxiety was, like, through the roof, I did buy a, seatbelt extender myself off of Amazon, and thankfully it worked for
Oh,
all
that is a good
the
thing.
seats. So I didn't have to go through that. That took down some anxiety that I didn't have to ask the flight attendant for it. I don't know if they're, like, approved, so don't take,
Oh, yeah.
but they
Right.
are sold. I don't know. But anyway, but the other thing I did was I set myself up for, like, early seating. You can, like, pay for early seating. And I sat myself in the window seat because I could always, like, lean kind of over because I am bigger. I am aware. That's a truth. That's reality. I take up more space. I'm aware of that. I'm not, you know, it's something I'm working on, but for today, I take up more space. So let's handle it the best way I can, right? And try to make it a good situation. So I would get to my seat, buckled in, and when the person arrived, big smile. Hi, how are you today? Just try to start up a conversation and just be like, okay, I know just let me know if I'm in your space. But that could be anybody. Flight seats are super small.
Yes.
Even my husband struggles with it's just a very tight space. Everybody's crammed in. And I think if you make people aware that I'm very aware of space, if I'm in your space, let me know. I'll do my best. I've never had somebody be rude to me. They go, "Oh no, don't worry about it," or whatever, and we start chatting. And I think part of it is how you present yourself as well. Embrace it positively, and it might be helpful for the experience instead of just being on the defense. Try to, and thinking this is going to be really terrible. And it's kind of like how we manifest what we want to happen, right?
Yes.
Like if you can go into it feeling like I can make this work. Now, I'm not saying it's going to work that way every time, but I have noticed that when I go in that way and kind of confront the situation, like, "Hi, how are you? I'm here."
Yeah.
That people have been friendly and welcoming. And when I'm walking on the street, sometimes I'll think about it too. Like I'm still 300 pounds walking on the street and I worry about people driving by, what they might be thinking. And I smile, they smile. Like engage first. Don't hide away from who you are, right?
Yes. And I'm so you said you mentioned space, that you take and then you mentioned it a little bit ago and I'm so glad you brought it up again because you know what you said we're in that meeting because they want us in that meeting. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? You are sitting on that plane seat because you want to go somewhere and we are humans and we are alive and we deserve to have space. We deserve to take up space no matter what anybody's opinion is of us. They can have their opinion, but we deserve to be in the space that we are in. And I think sometimes we, like you said, you feel like we should be small and hide away. And, I mean, I think not confronting, but just being welcoming, greeting, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so like, we don't need to hide. We get to be in the space no matter what anybody thinks, because we're here too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
So I know thought work I remember when I first heard the term thought work, and I have gone through coach certification. April has, so we've spent time learning about thought work, and you know, coming to these realizations has not been immediate. It hasn't been
No,
perfect.
it's
Um,
not over either.
yeah, and it isn't over. It'll probably be till our dying day because there are
Yes.
outside influences and our own voices forever. It's being willing to try, to practice, and to keep going. We don't have to show up perfectly. Sometimes I sit in my dirty diaper stewing over something somebody has said about me to me. Um, and it's when we catch ourselves and realize that, like you said, do I want to believe this? Do I want to do something else with it? And it's in the practicing that you will get to that point that, though not perfect, it will become easier.
Absolutely. And it's not always perfect. And it is an ongoing thing to work on, especially if you do usually fundamentally care about what that doesn't necessarily ever go away. It's just how you process it differently. Or, I've had super embarrassing moments. Like I talked about the plane and that went really well, but I've also had mortifying moments because of my size. Like I was visiting my brother when he lived in the Caribbean, and we took out this little boat for a ride to go swimming. And you had to kind of hoist yourself back up into the boat. I was not able to do that.
Mm,
And my poor brother had to try to help me get it back into the boat. We didn't think it was going to happen. I was mortified, crying. I was not sure how I was going to get back to where we were staying. I did end up getting back in the boat. It was not a pretty sight, nor fun for either one of us. But when I think about that moment and I look back on that trip, that is the last, I'm thinking about it now because we're talking about all of this stuff,
mhm.
but that is not the memory that comes back to me when I think about that trip. It's all the other great moments that we had at that trip. And I don't regret going on that trip. And I've constantly always been working on my weight my whole life, trying to find the right path and right thing that works for my body. And I was overweight at that time and I'm overweight today. But between that time and this time, I have gathered many, many memories in my life that I get to take with me, that my family gets to take with them, my friends, because I didn't stop living just because of an embarrassing moment, right? You just, size or not, everybody has embarrassing moments. Famous people have them. You see it all the time plastered on TV. They keep going. You just have to keep going. And I only talk about famous people like say people talk about they look up to them so much, right?
Right. Yeah.
I think they're so great and this, that, and the other, but their lives are trashed on a daily basis of judgment. Like if you read,
Constantly.
the papers and stuff, but they keep going out there because fundamentally they want to keep doing what they do. And so they just keep going out there. Like it's not an isolated story that we're treated poorly, is kind of what my point is, right?
Right.
People are
Right.
treated and judged and talked about because of obvious other more important sad reasons, their race or their gender or their choices or whatever. I think it's very rare to find a person who hasn't had something in their life be judged about themselves for or talked about or made feel bad about. So I encourage people not to live in that moment of I'm always judged about my weight or my weight, my weight. It's just people are judged
Yeah.
over whatever they want to be judged for by somebody else. You know what I mean? And just take that time with yourself again to just develop the relationship with you of what you want to believe about yourself and how you want to live your life for today, regardless of what anybody else is thinking or saying.
And that's such a great way to I think wrap this up. I love that when you look back at that trip, you're only talking about it now because it's what
Mhm,
pertains to this, but you
mhm,
see the memories. And I am judged because of my weight. Just when we think that, to that power phrase you just gave, all people are judged. You
mhm,
know, so if you can't jump from this to some great thing, just all people are judged. Just
mhm.
make it neutral.
Yes.
Love that. Well, people say things and we get to decide what we do with them. So I'm going to say next week we are looking for questions.
Yep.
And, if you have a question, great. We have plenty of things to talk about, as April and I had talked about before. And, we just have so much fun doing this and just want to help as many people as we can. So that we love your questions so much.
Yeah, we do. It's really what drove us to want to do the podcast is to help other people and make sure everybody knows they're not alone. And we can talk about how we deal with things or try to help you how, for you to figure out your own way to deal with it. But definitely write in. If you'd like, we have the Facebook page and the email is April and Debbie dish the truth at gmail.com. Or like Debbie said, we have plenty of topics that we'll come up with next week if we don't have one, but we're happy to respond if somebody would like to write in.
We have fun with those. So, you
Mm.
know what? I am going to tell you to keep blooming today. The sun is shining here in New Hampshire. The birds are singing. So, good day to get out and enjoy the sun, whatever you do.
Yes. And as always, wake up willing to do something that feels good to you.
All right. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye.